one, I unplugged it and plugged it back in. Am I still muted? So, can you hear me now? That's better. Okay, so you can hear me now. Yay! Goodness. I swear. It's like I don't change anything. I don't touch any settings, and the computer just like does stuff. It's like, no, now you shall be muted. It's like, but why? Okay, so yay, you can hear me now. So let's back up a bit to welcome to Torch Thursday for our cup of tea ring. So yeah, I was having a bit of a week last week, and so I really just wanted to do a project that was fun and whimsical and silly, and so that's what I came up with, is let's make a ring that looks like a teacup or a coffee cup. Because
and then you can spill the tea whenever.
Why the heck not? And you can, in fact, spill the tea whenever. Corvus also had a good idea of, like, you know, you could also fill the little cup with resin, so it looked like it was literally full of coffee or tea. I personally like the... Sorry. Also, allergies. So many allergies.
I'm making a tiny tea bag to go in it.
Are you really?
Might.
Well, you're not right now.
I'm not right now.
Because I can see you. Sort of.
Well, right now I'm sending someone a package. Doing my actual job that I get paid for.
So, let's talk about tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. Okay, let's start with tools. It's a soldering class, so you need all your soldering stuff. That's going to be flux, torch, soldering surface, pickle. If you don't have a tumbler, I am not going to actually pickle mine tonight. I'm just going to chunk it in the tumbler after my class. But as far as like specialty tools, like things that are not in your normal soldering, you know, fabrication lexicon, you are going to need a disc cutter and punches. For tonight's class, you're going to need a ring mandrel. This is for making rings, not for beating people. You're going to need some kind of a hammer to smash your punches with on your disc cutter. And then, of course, you're going to need files, sandpaper, steel wool, your hand tools, round nose, G-nose, wire cutters, and tweezers, because this does involve... So the hardest part of this class, of this project, is the handle of the little teacup. And if you look real close at the, excuse me, at the project photo, you can see the handle is a little smushed, because I had difficulty doing it, attaching it. And also the thing that I also realized just now that you need that I don't have is dapping block and dapping punches. So be right back.
Oh, you're gonna come visit me.
Because the dapping punches live by you.
They do. They haunt my dreams.
But now I'm going back here. Thank you. You know, actually, my mother made this shirt. It's beautiful burnout velvet, and she is super OCD, so of course she centered the pattern on the middle of the shirt. And yeah, I mean, you can say a lot of things about my mother that are not flattering, but she's a really good seamstress.
She's very good at doing stuff. She's just not very good at doing people.
It's true.
And I could say that about myself as well. So.
But you're bad at doing people in a different way.
Yes.
I wouldn't say you're bad at doing people. You're just awkward at doing people. I don't know. That's a whole therapy session right there. But anyway.
It's true.
Dapping block and dapping punches. It is, and there's and she made an identical one out of the same burnout velvet pattern, but it's like autumn colors. It's like reds and golds, and I don't know where it is.
It's in a safe place.
It's somewhere in my house, I'm sure, but like after, I have no clue where it is. awkward is different than rude. It's true. And also, again, I wouldn't necessarily characterize my mother as rude. She just, her emotional intelligence is, she just can't read the room. Nor does she care to, really.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of those two things. But let's make a cute ring that looks like a teacup. And forget about our problems for a moment as we bask in its adorable teacuppiness.
Adorability.
I'm going with adorable teacuppiness. So this is the actual ring in question. So this is my sample. So that right there is what I was saying where it got kind of smushed when I was attaching the handle. So I'm going to see if I can do a better job of that on stream tonight. But yeah, it's again just fun and whimsical, and it made me happy, so therefore I decided to do it. So we're going to start with a piece of 24 gauge sheet silver. Now as far as supplies for tonight's class, you're going to need some 24 gauge sheet silver. You're going to need some wire for your ring band, 16 or 18 gauge. We are actually completely out of 16 gauge sterling, so I'm going to use 18 gauge for my band tonight, and just a wee tiny snippet of 20 gauge to make the handle. Like, this is literally like 6 times what you're going to need to make the handle, but it was what was easy to cut off of my wire coil. See, exactly. What problems? Who has problems when there is mini tea to be had? Is tiny tea? Is tea for fairies and toads? This is totally toad-sized tea. Small creatures, lizards. Basically all the things that Mamie likes to kill.
It has been 4 days.
It's been 4 days. 4. Since I have had a dead creature in my house, at least somewhere that I could find it. I feel like I need to make one of those signs. It's been 4 days without an incident. I wonder how many days Mamie can get up to before she brings me a gifty. Okay, so we're gonna start with
gifty.
A what?
Nifty gifty.
A necro gifty. And oh crap!
What'd you lose?
My mouse.
Maybe bring it to you.
Maybe will bring it to me, but it won't be functional when she does.
That's fair.
It literally fell in with the paperwork. Yeah, no, Mamie does not bring functional mouses. She only brings X mouses into the house. So, this is a disc cutter, and this is a nice disc cutter, and from personal experience, I've said this before, I will say, do not, it's not really worth buying cheap disc cutters because they absolutely suck. They're so bad. So spend the money and buy yourself an expensive disc cutter, or just cut your discs out with shears or a saw, because seriously, my years of experience with cheap disc cutters almost made me think that they were, like, all disc cutters were entirely worthless, and that's not actually true. Once again, it's just the cheap ones that suck. Okay, so I'm going to cut 2 sizes of discs. A bigger one. Oh dear. Sorry. For my saucer, and a smaller one for my cup. So the way that this works is I'm going to find the appropriate sized receptacle for my punch in my disc cutter. I'm going to take my sheet silver. I'm just going to put it in there. And I'm going to take this handle and I'm just going to tighten that down. And I realize this is kind of out of focus. Sorry, that was me cackling at Lori and Corvus. They are uncannily similar. Alright, so I've got that in there. So now I'm going to take the punch that fits in that hole, I'm going to drop it in there. So when you're using a disc cutter, your punches are generally going to have one blunt end and one angled end. The angled end is what goes down. And the other cool thing about the expensive disc cutters is like they make them different diameters. So this fits in the hole. This is very loose and does not fit perfectly in the hole. So it makes it a little bit more stupid proof for those days when you just don't have any brain cells. Now I'm going to take a big ass hammer. I'm going to use my brass dead blow hammer, and I'm just going to pound this until my disc cutter goes all the way through my metal. I'm going to try not to bash my hammer, or my camera. Sorry. I need more swing room. There we go. So it's one of those things where if you can swing the hammer more, the hammer will actually do more of the work. It's going to go faster. So there's one disc. Now I'm going to go ahead and move my metal to the other disc size. I know, I love my brass hammer. It's amazing. It is heavy and fantastic. Okay, so once again, I've got my punch inserted into my receptacle in my disc cutter, and my metal's in there as well, and I'm just going to go ahead and whack it with a hammer. So, the heavier your hammer is, the more work your hammer can do for you if you let it. And this kind of brings me to one of my grandfather's favorite sayings, which was, don't force it, just go get a bigger hammer. You know, he was not wrong. But you know, you gotta know how to use the hammer. So, you know, the more you choke up on the hammer, and especially us females, I feel like a lot of times are taught or told that we should hold the hammer up here because somebody who's talking to us thinks we're not strong enough to actually use the hammer the way it's supposed to be used. So, you know, physics is a thing. You know, the closer to the bottom of the hammer you have, the more force the actual hammerhead is going to have on its own. So if you choke it up right here, you know, you can get force, but you're literally, like, your muscles are providing the force. Whereas if you hold it down here, you can let the hammer fall. That's Queen's song. Almost. And
Almost,
and
yeah.
it will do the work for you. So that's something I feel like society has done a disservice to women, is not teaching us how to properly wield a hammer. So the heavier your hammer head is, the less effort you actually have to put in with your own muscles if you're using it correctly, because the weight of the hammer will actually do the work for you. So that's my little soapbox about hammers for today. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to dap these pieces. So a dapping block. I literally hid the dapping block from myself by putting the punches on top of it. So dapping block is a kind of nefarious looking cube like this. If you have really good aim and you threw this at somebody, you would probably seriously injure them because it's steel and it's got really sharp corners. But what you probably notice as I'm rotating it around is it has a variety of depressions. So the purpose of a dapping block is to curve round pieces of metal. So it's basically, it's also called a doming block. So it's meant to make a flat circle into a domed circle. So what you want to do is you want to find the depression on your dapping block that your metal will drop completely into. So for instance, this one, it really won't. It's kind of just balancing on the surface. So we're gonna go with this one instead. Plus, this is our saucer. So I want to dap our saucer as shallowly as possible. I want to dap our cup as deeply as possible. So here's a trick. If you're trying to dap something as shallowly as possible, you can actually even go one above where it should go. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, every dapping block is a paired set with dapping punches, which are these round guys. And what we want to do is we want to find the dapping punch really, allergies? No. Why? So I take a 12-hour Claritin every morning, and today it wore off at 11 hours. So I'm just a coughing, hacking mess. Sorry about that. So you want to find a punch that goes completely down inside the depression of your dapping block without contacting this side edge, because if you get a punch that is too big like that and then you hammer on it, what you're going to do is you're actually going to mar your punch. How do I know that? Because I have a whole lot of messed up dapping punches from students doing exactly what I just said not to do. So I'm going to put that in my depression. I'm going to put my dapping punch on top of it, and then I'm going to move over here and I'm going to hammer it. Okay, and with just a few blows of the hammer, I have a cute little curved bit that's going to be my saucer. I will probably sand that edge a bit, but for the moment, I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to work on now dapping my cup. So, if you want to dap something with a deep curve, this is a process. Okay, this is a multi-stage thing. So I'm going to start with whatever is the smallest depression into which it fits. I'm going to find the punch that goes with that, and then I'm going to go ahead and dap it. Okay, so now I have a curved piece similar to my saucer, but now I want to make this even more curved. So the thing is, once you've dapped it, you can go then find what's the next smallest one that it'll go into, and then you can find the punch for that, and then I'm going to hammer it again. So now it's gotten a little bit more curved. So now I'm going to see what's the next one it'll go into. That one there. And we're going to go ahead and find the punch that fits in there. Not that one. A little bit, now I can make a soup ring. No, T. It's a T ring. Sorry if I'm knocking things off of your table. Alright, so now I've gotten even more deep, and I'm going to go for one more. If I can find the right one. It's stuck in my dapping block. It's right there. Won't come out. Bear with me while I attempt to solve this mystery.
Bear with.
Right? Get the lube. It's too late for the lube, Corvus. If I was going to apply the lube, I should have done it before I put the thing in the thing. Sorry. Okay, so while I'm fighting with this, I am going to tell my funny lube story.
Yes.
So Mandy, my best friend, or best friend aside from Heather, I was maid of honor at her wedding, and yeah, we're super close. So she also makes jewelry. She's also a super talented painter and artist, and basically I love her to death and also fucking hate her because she's so talented. But
Exactly.
she also has that thing where it's like sometimes you look at the really talented people and you're like, why did you think that was a good idea? So she was
A little bit of a relief.
She was right. So she was attempting to saw metal.
I need you.
What? What is that?
What does it look like?
I don't know.
It's too big.
It's too big. The scale is not right.
Well, then throw it away.
No, make it smaller. Too large. Put it back. Make it smaller. It's still stuck to my finger. Here. So she was sawing metal, and she was basically consulting the internet about how to do this, and the internet suggested using a lubricant for sawing metal, which is not incorrect advice. So when you're sawing metal, you can lubricate your saw blade. Usually your lubricants are beeswax or something like 3-in-1 oil or olive oil, or there are a bunch of actual commercial lubricants that are made for saw blades. Well, of course, Mandy didn't. This is the size of the cup that you're working with. Of course, Mandy just read lubricant and immediately went to Walgreens and got Astroglide. And that's what she used to lubricate her saw blade.
Okay.
Because once again, super talented people, not always with the mostest smartness.
I bet it was well lubed.
She completed her project, so she did accomplish the goal, but just to be completely clear, Astroglide is not the frankly, Astroglide is not the optimal lubricant in any situation. There are much better lubes out there, but for sawing metal especially, Astroglide is not the optimal product. Okay, so I've got my pieces dapped. So there is my saucer and there is my cup. This is my handle, this is my spout. And now I am seeing sandpaper. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sand the edges of these, because what happens when you dap something, I don't know if you can see on camera, but the edge becomes sloped because you're taking a flat piece and you're curving it. So I'm going to go ahead and just flatten out those edges. So I just have some 320 sandpaper, and I'm just going to put my pieces down on that sandpaper and just move them back and forth just to flatten that edge down a bit. Alright, so that looks good. I'm going to do the cup. There's my cup, and the edges are also nice and flattened out on that. Now, some of you may be wondering why I'm not worried about the writing that's on the inside of this that says sterling silver 24 gauge. That's because as soon as I solder it, that writing is literally going to evaporate. So this is what I have so far, my little cup and saucer set. So now I'm going to go ahead and make my ring and my handle bit, and then I'm going to solder everything together. So as far as making my ring goes, that's going to require a ring mandrel, and I'm going to take my 16 or 18 gauge wire. Like I said, I've got 18 because we are out of 16, and whatever ring size I'm going for, and I'm going to go for a 7, I'm going to go up about 3 sizes, and I'm just going to take my wire and bend it around my ring mandrel so that I have overlapping curves, like so. Let go, and then just push your wire down to the size that you want. It's always easier when you're working on a mandrel to make things bigger than it is to make them smaller. So it's always better to start smaller and then stretch rather than start bigger and try and reduce. Now I'm going to take my Sharpie and just mark across both of those pieces of wire. Those are my cut lines, and I can take that off my mandrel and set that aside. I may need that later. Well, you could totally sculpt a silver tea bag and solder it. Heather's making me a silver tea or a paper tea bag though, because she's awesome like that.
I mean, am I? Because I don't know. The last one was not well received. Of course I am.
That was shade directed at me through the computer. So, and actually, Corvus, the answer to your question is somebody could sculpt a silver tea bag. I could not sculpt my way out of a paper sack if my life depended on it, so I couldn't, but somebody could. So I'm going to cut at my cut lines, and remember to use your flush cutters so that the flush side is towards the part of your wire that is remaining, which means typically either flipping your wire or flipping your cutters.
Okay, this is as small as I can get. I'm sorry.
Right, we have tea bag 2.0.
It's not ready yet.
Oh, okay. Tea bag 2.0 is coming. Sculpting is fun, Corvus. I just don't have the talent for it. Like, I can make blobs. I can make various and exciting types of blobs, and that's about it.
You are very good at blobs, though.
I'm good at blobs, but I, wish I could sculpt things that were not blobs. Okay, now we have to flush up these ends of wire so that they will meet so we can solder them. So I'm just going to take my file and I'm going to file those flat. But I always wished I had talent at drawing or sculpting. Just not a gift.
Now, drawing is a skill more than a talent.
That's fair. Alright, so there's my ends. And so what I want to do is then I want to tension fit them so that I can snap them together and they will hold tension without me having to hold it, and that is a joint that I can now solder. So now it's time to pull out the soldering surface and the torches, or torch singular. So step 1 is I'm going to solder this band together. Ah! It's so cute. All right.
It's not that much smaller.
Well, I think it's smaller enough. So we shall do the tea bag reveal at the end of the stream.
I mean, the other one I tried to make a staple for and everything.
Alright, I realize y'all can't see anything, so we're going to see what the camera will do about that. So Corvus, you can sculpt me a tea bag to go with Heather's tea bag. And then I can have a double tea ring. No, I will show you about what I screamed at the end of the stream because it's super cute. Okay, so I'm going to solder the band and I'm going to solder the teacup to the saucer. So I'm going to do this whole project with easy and extra easy solder. So I'm going to grab my easy solder, which apparently has mated with the bead stopper, and my extra easy solder. So
That hoe bag.
right? Okay, so easy and easy, and then we're going to go extra easy from here on out. So I need to cut 2 pieces of easy solder. And just for anybody who needs a refresher, so solder comes in what they call different densities, which is different melting points. And when you're doing a project like this one that has multiple joints, what you want to do is start with a higher melting point solder and then work down so that you don't risk as much messing up the things you've done before as you're continuing your project. Honestly, Corvus, if you just want to sculpt it and send it to me, I can fire it. This packet really good. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and flux both of these items. So flux is a protectant for your metal, and what it does is it ensures that your metal will not oxidize, and this is very important to the soldering process. If your metal gets coated in oxide, then your solder won't flow on it, and literally that means that none of this will work. So what the flux does is it protects your metal from oxidation and allows your solder to flow. Now I'm going to take my 2 pieces of solder. I'm going to put one on top of my dome here, and I'm going to put one underneath the joint of my band. Okay, so now it's time to solder. So I've got my torch here. It's a butane torch. This is a Blazer brand. It's my favorite brand. If you need assistance with soldering safety, go ahead and click on that link that Lori just posted in the Twitch chat for soldering safety tips. That is my very brief 5-point lecture about how to keep your fire is not scary, Lee. Fire is fun. We like fire, especially on the Beading Dream stream, but you should be responsible with your fire. So click on that link if you want to that Lori just posted in the Twitch chat. That'll take you to my 5-point soldering safety lecture, which will give you the bare bones of either being safe in your own home soldering space or being safe in a community soldering space. Now, I am not any kind of expert. I'm just some rando on the internet. So if you're gonna make a soldering space in your home, you know, consult actual experts. Do everything you can to make it safe. If you're in a community soldering space, please listen to, you know, anybody who is telling you rules and regulations, suggestions, because really their job is, and they are trained to keep everyone in that space safe. So they're not trying to harsh on your good time. If you want to just like run wee with your torch all over, like that's great, but not really safe. So safety is important, but also, you know, be safe with your flame. Don't be afraid of your flame, because being afraid of your flame can also lead to bad things. So what I've got here is I have my ring and my cup. I've got a piece of solder on the bottom of my cup, and I've got a piece of solder under my ring. So now I'm going to go ahead and light my torch. And I got my tweezers just in case I need to move anything. And I'm just going to start soldering. So when I'm soldering, I'm going to heat the whole thing. So you see I'm moving my flame around my whole ring. And the cool thing about putting your solder underneath your piece is that you can really easily see when your solder flows, because my ring literally settled down and my solder flowed up and covered my joint. And I'm going to do the same thing with my cup. So what I'm doing with my cup is what's called sweating the solder. So I'm going to heat it until that solder flows, and then I'm going to stop heating it. So sweating your solder is a way that you can join things together invisibly or almost invisibly. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to take my saucer and I'm going to put some flux in there, and then I'm going to take my cup that has solder flowed already on the back of it. I'm going to drop that into my saucer, and then I'm going to heat the whole thing until that solder reflows and joins those two pieces together. So once again, we're going to heat everything. So you notice the flux is turning kind of crusty. So when your flux turns white and then it turns clear, that means you're reaching the temperature at which solder can flow. Now, since we got two rounded bottoms, you can see it's a little off kilter at the moment. So what I'm going to try to do with my tweezers is I'm going to try to just nudge it into place once that solder flows, so that it'll be level is the word I'm looking for. Oops. Did y'all see that? Totally just melted my saucer. It's okay, it won't take me that long to redo that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unsolder these two. Because my cup is still okay, it's just my saucer that's toast. And while I'm cutting a new saucer and dapping it, I will answer Corvus's question. Good Lord, what the heck? Just let go. Nope, it won't. Why will you not just separate? Well, it's turned pink because I'm heating the crap out of it. And it's not wanting to unsolder. So, Corvus's question was, what is the flux for again? So the flux is a protectant. What it does is it keeps your metal from oxidizing at the places where you applied it, and that is what allows the soldering process to work. If your metal gets too full of oxide or fire scale, basically that black, literally just put my finger in the flame. If your metal gets too full of fire scale or oxide, I don't even know what the heck that was, the solder literally will not flow. Okay, so we're going to take a pause for a moment while I get myself back to where I was just a second ago. So, ooh, hi Smee! Yay! What movie are you going to see at the drive-in in New Braunfels? Inquiring minds, mine in particular, want to know. Also, I want to know what the heck did I do with my silver sheet. My finger is fine, Corvus, thank you. I was using easy to solder the cup and saucer together, but I'm thinking that my better choice in a minute when I redo this is going to be to use extra easy, because I feel like the volume of metal with which I was dealing was too much for my torch with that particular density of solder. So it's going to get poundy for a minute while I make a couple new discs, and then I'm going to dap them quickly, and then we're going to go on with the show. Lightyear or Jurassic? I think, I don't know. I have not heard good reviews about Lightyear, though I love the little like cat robot on the previews. I have seen Jurassic, and I can tell you that it is super campy, cause you know, Jurassic, but worth seeing on the big screen, cause really good, okay, some not so good animation, but also some really good practical effects. Okay, we're going to continue to pound a bit, because we're going to dap these babies. Okay, so just for bye, Smee, enjoy your movie. Okay, so just for anybody who is just joining us, I had a bit of a fail my first time around, so now I'm remaking my little teacup pieces, I'm redapping them to make them more. Oh my! I'm fine, but my entire hand cam and light just fell off of the desk.
Perhaps Charles has been hammering too much. There's a chance.
Yeah, apparently.
I don't know if we should mention that.
Okay, it's gonna, right? The camera is a camera and light, and I have no idea where the clamp for the light. Okay, there it is. It's on the floor. Yeah. Okay.
Do you just want me to hold the light?
No.
I can.
Okay. It's just gonna take me a minute to get everything back in place.
Hey, Gaffer.
Excuse me for a moment while I get my light clamp. Yes, the light and the camera are indeed hammered. Oh dear. Okay. We can do this. We can fix this. Famous last words, right, y'all? Okay, so camera. I mean, at least I didn't melt the camera. I mean, that's still gonna go down in history as, I think my worst stream ever. Okay, so, alright, now that my equipment is mostly back in place, I'm gonna continue to hammer. Right when the hammering gets too intense, things fall down. Alright, so can get it to get out of my dapping block. I'm basically back where I was before I melted everything. So I've already, wow, what the actual heck about my camera falling down changed the exposure to like the brilliant surface of the sun. I'm not even kidding. Like, what is that?
Did it accidentally face the light or something and go, whoa,
I don't know, but I mean, literally, it's like Tatooine up in here at the moment. So bear with while I fix that. Oh, hey, look, now you can actually see things. It's crazy. All right, so we're gonna try this again. We're gonna take two. We're gonna try a slightly different approach. First of all, we're gonna go down to extra easy solder. Okay, so this has a lower melting point than the easy solder I was trying to solder with before. Second of all, I think I'm gonna sweat the solder into the saucer instead of onto the cup. See if that makes a difference. I still have to flux both of them. And I'm going to cut a small piece of my extra easy solder and I'm going to drop it into the bowl of that saucer. And then we're going to heat it up and hope it goes in the right place. If it doesn't, I have the tweezers. We want that ideally to be right in the middle. So we're going to heat that up until it flows, and there we go. I'm going to take my cup. I'm going to drop that in there. And we're going to try and center that up and just hold it in place until that solder flows. Because where I kind of went awry last time is I was trying to position it on the fly. Let's see if holding it in place makes any difference. Bingo. There we go. There's our little tea bowl and saucer. So now we're going to go ahead and make the handle, which again is the hardest part, or I found to be the hardest part of the whole thing, because we've got to kind of just make a tiny little wire handle and just sort of attach it in between the cup and the saucer. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers and my 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to make literally just like the tiniest little C shape that I can possibly make, because this is a very tiny little teacup that we are making here. And I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm just going to cut that off. Make sure you hang on to it so it doesn't run away. Okay, so that right there, that's my little handle, that little C-shaped piece of wire. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my flux and I'm going to flux that. You're just going to wind up fluxing the whole thing because it's really impossible not to, because it's so little. And then I'm going to take my extra easy solder and I'm going to cut two very small pieces, like tiny little pieces of extra easy solder. 1 and 2. And then I'm going to place those pieces of solder right underneath or against each end of my little handle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sweat those pieces of solder onto that little piece of wire, and that's going to be a really quick process because that wire is really small and is going to just take up heat super fast. Also, sometimes your heat will, as that just did, sort of blow your solder away, so you can just take your tweezers, grab it, and bring it back to where it needs to be. So my goal is to get a piece of solder sweated onto each side of my handle, which I've accomplished on one side. I've accomplished that on 2 sides. Now I'm going to take that with my tweezers, and this is the part that's kind of touch and go. So everyone say a really brief prayer that I don't completely ruin this. I'm going to take my little handle that I just made, and I'm going to hold it on my little cup. Like so, and then I'm going to heat this and hope that I can get the solder to flow. Alright, it's on there. Right? Thank you, Corvus. Corvus said the appropriate prayer. Alright, so it's there. So my cup of tea now has a tiny little handle. And now all I have to do is solder on the ring. So I'm going to put the whole thing upside down. I'm going to flux the center bottom of it. I'm going to grab once again my extra easy solder. I'm going to cut a medium-sized piece, so probably about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to set that on the back of my, really? I love how the projects know when you're on stream, and they're like, we're not going to cooperate. We're not going to let you look cool on the internet. What the heck?
You still look cool on the internet.
Well, that's sweet, but that solder was really trying to make me not. So I'm going to take that piece of solder and I want to sweat it onto...
No solder has that much power.
I want to sweat it onto the back of my saucer. Then I'm going to grab my ring band, and ideally I want to take the joint right there where I've already soldered it, and that's where I want to solder those two things together. So I'm just going to hold that so it's touching the solder I just flowed. I'm going to reheat the whole thing until that solder flows and bonds the two together. And that, ooh, don't fall on my, it's one of the few pairs of jeans I have that doesn't have, ah! Sorry. So.
Okay, that was a spooter screen.
Well, no, that was a, I'm wearing one of the few pairs of jeans I own that doesn't have burn holes in the thighs, and I just dropped the hot metal.
Because you're trying to make burn holes in the thighs.
I just feel the need to distress my own jeans. So this brings up a good point about the ring. It's melted into the carpet. Oh. So aprons are a good thing, because if I had been wearing an apron, I could have caught that piece in my apron without fear that I would burn my clothing or myself. Instead, I did not wear an apron, and now the ring has melted itself into the completely dated purple synthetic carpet of my bead shop. So, pardon me for a moment whilst I go on a retrieval mission.
We burning it all to the ground?
No. If we're gonna get insurance, we need to make it look like an accident. I don't think that setting everything on fire with a torch looks like an accident.
That's totally fair. I am behind you on that, yes.
Okay, so there's some lovely purple carpet fuzz on my ring now.
Well, it'll burn off and make a nice smell pretty quickly.
Fair. Okay, so So I actually, despite the melting of the carpet, I did successfully complete my ring. It got deformed a bit when I was yanking it off of the... No, you should totally laugh about it, Lori. Are you kidding? So I'm going to go ahead and take that and I'm going to put it back on my mandrel just to round it out. And Heather is correct that the best way to get rid of the purple carpet fibers on this is going to be to heat it up. It's going to stink, so be glad that none of you have smell-o-vision.
I do. I'm going to move away.
There's not that much carpet on it. Alright. And that's it. So that's my little teacup ring. And once it cools down, I'm going to show you the adorable thing that Heather made to go in it. But if it's not cool enough, the thing Heather made will actually set on fire. And that's not the goal. So at this point, this would go into either a pickle and get buffed by hand, or it's in fact going to go into my tumbler. There are lots of cool things you could do with the inside of this. You could fill it with resin. You could fill it with resin and little tiny gemstones if you had the absolute perfect gemstone to set in there. You could also set a single stone in there, or you could just leave it blank, which I like the kind of empty teacup look. Alright, so of course what Heather made was a tiny little tea bag that can go into my tiny little teacup. Except it's too sticky. There we go. So there's a tiny little tea bag for the tiny little teacup ring because Heather's awesome and amazing. And there we go. So that's it. That's your tiny little cup of tea. Isn't it adorable? And I only had to melt a small portion of my carpet to get that to work. So thank you so much for hanging out on the Torch Thursday Beading Dream stream for our teacup. Hi, Jenny. For our teacup ring or cup of tea ring with adorable little tea bag provided by Heather. So thanks so much for hanging out with us on the Beading Dreams stream. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. The creator of the adorable little tea bag is Heather from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. Together, we are the management team of a retail bead shop. We're an actual brick and mortar retail premises here on Lovers Lane in Dallas, Texas. If you're local in Dallas, we'd absolutely encourage you to come and visit us often and oftener. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus Thursdays at noon. Good night, Lori. And live merchandise sales every Wednesday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. We will be live tomorrow night on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, with our freeform Friday tutorial. That's one where I pick a random project and do it for you guys start to finish on stream. Hopefully I will. Right? Hopefully I will. Oh dear. Excuse me, yawns and coughs all at the same time. That's amazing. So I'll pick a project tomorrow night to do in front of y'all. Hopefully I will actually finish it successfully, but you never know, it could become an episode of Allison Screws Up on the Internet, so tune in to see what happens. And then Saturday we will be back with this project, Tin Cup Knotting, followed by a live merchandise sale. So everyone have a great night, and we'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bye, y'all.